Hello there, this is Robin Norgren from Bright Child Montessori, Josie's Art School, The Gifted Learner. So glad that you're here. In this video, we are doing a series called Ask a Montessori Teacher, where I have been asking for, and I'd love to hear from you, questions that you want to ask a Montessori teacher, whether you be a new teacher or somebody who hasn't been in the classroom for a while, or a Montessori teacher that finds themselves now in a charter school setting rather than the traditional Montessori setting, or even a parent or a homeschool environment. Please feel free to ask your questions. I would also ask if you could do me a favor to like and subscribe to this channel if this is something that you find of value. Not only do I talk about Montessori here, but I have over 150 art lessons on this channel that you can easily follow along with whatever style of classroom that you have. So let's go ahead and get on to the next three questions that I am addressing today. So here is question number one. What rules should we have for outdoor activities and recess? What a fantastic question. Okay, so these again are opportunities for us to meet together with our children and talk about what would be acceptable behavior outside, any sort of outdoor activity, any sort of recess. What do we do when our friend needs help? What do we do if we need help? How loud should we be out there? Are we listening for certain sounds? Like, is there a clap? Or is there a whistle that's going to happen when I need to get your attention quickly? What do we do when we hear those sounds? All of those things need to be well thought out before we let any student out in that environment. Because again, it's potential to have an unsafe environment if we are not careful. I love the idea of what are your rules at home when you are outside? And we talk about those. Or have you been to another school and what was one of their rules that they might have that you think would be something that would be helpful for us? I think anytime that we can put ourselves in a posture of learning from our students, it builds this trust that in them, that they know I don't have all the answers and that we actually are learning together in this environment. You may find that some students can't handle a certain activity on the playground. So we're just going to say, when we're on the playground, remember, that's not an activity that you can do at this time. Or maybe there's certain students that are having maybe a tough day, and so you'll find this somehow they can't seem to stay away from each other, though they can't seem to get along today. So we're going to have, if you see me do this, that's what that means. You go one way, you go another way. Again, an introduction to what is the system in your school will be very important. So if you're not necessarily the one on the playground when they go outside for recess, let's say, then you're introducing your whole class to who is on the playground and who is considered your teacher out here on the playground. They will let me know if something is going on in the classroom. So you are not out here acting one kind of way out here and another kind of way with Miss Norgren. That is not acceptable behavior. And so it's just things like that where you have to really kind of stand in the gap for those teachers. I would call them auxiliary teachers, the specials teacher, the playground attendant, the lunch aide. Like, you need to constantly kind of align yourself with them so that just because I don't have my eyes on you to see what you are doing, eyes are on you. And the purpose of that is to keep you safe and to keep you in a safe learning environment. How do you dismiss for lunch? We have a cafeteria. Okay, so I talked a little bit of this about the last video. I will link this video down below. Dismissing for lunch, for the most part, if you're going into a cafeteria setting, usually what we would be doing, and I'm going to base it on, I didn't actually have a cafeteria setting for my Well, I take that back. Isn't that funny how things kind of fly out of your head? I didn't have it in a Montessori classroom. Let me put it this way. Last year, I was working in a kindergarten classroom at a charter school, and it was not Montessori. So I did dismiss to a lunchroom. So let me rephrase that, but it was not a Montessori setting. So what would happen is they were in rows. So I would line them up by rows. We had an expectation of how you were lining up, which means you are not talking in line. You're walking over, you're getting your lunch if you have a lunch. If you bought school lunch, you would automatically just go to the front of the line. They had an option of hot lunch and cold lunch, so they would just figure out, oh, I'm a hot lunch, oh, I'm a cold lunch, I'm behind you. And we would get into line in an orderly fashion. We used hand sanitizer, so everyone would get hand sanitizer. We would not leave the room until that line was quiet, right? We're not leaving the room till the line is quiet. So sometimes, and I will say that I did this, they of course don't know that, but this is what I would do. Especially in those first few weeks, I would line up early because I would anticipate there might be a problem with this, because my expectation is quiet in line. So there would be times where they would all have to go sit back down and we'd have to try it again, right? So once they were in an orderly fashion, in line, ready to go, usually we had a wagon to put the lunch boxes in for when they were finished with their lunch, and the lunch people who had lunch boxes wouldn't have to carry a lunch box all through recess. So there would be someone who would have that job to go to the front of the line. There was a place to deposit the wagons in the lunchroom, and then we would all walk quietly into the lunchroom. They would find their seats where they were sitting, and then they would get school lunch. Now, in that environment, I did not do a poem, I did not do a prayer. They just, once they sat down, they were able to eat. And then in that environment, there were lunch aides there that they were to respect the lunch aides. So again, modifying that for a Montessori environment, you would then kind of take where again, we're talking about how do we walk in a hallway? How do we present ourselves to others? Are we respectful and ready to go? Would we be able to hear if there was an emergency? That's why we are quiet in line and when we're walking around these, the hallways and that sort of thing. So that's how I handled a cafeteria situation. Is there a flow chart for the language? So there isn't, and what she's asking here is, in my last video, I talked about that because of the Montessori, because I've gone through both the AMS and the AMI programs, I leaned more towards the AMS program for some things and the AMI for other things. I should do a video on that sometime. But for the AMS programs, a lot of Montessori guides used what we call the pink, blue, and green system. And that was basically, CVC words was the pink system. Blue system was like digraphs and blends and things like that. And then your green system was more of the challenging words and just kind of, you had to learn that I and E made this sound sometimes, and sometimes it would make other sounds. So it was a really nice system. Again, I mean, it had its holes. I'm always about that. You're always also looking to general education and seeing what they're doing, because there's just some things that you just really can't get at just doing it in one particular system. But that being said, that is a nice system to start with, especially if you're new to Montessori, if you're a new Montessori teacher, or even if you were in AMI and you wanted to change it up a little bit and incorporate it. I would say that's the system I would use, because it's very straightforward that once they've mastered the pink system, you would then go to the blue system. You would then go to the green system. Okay? All right, let's see. One last question. Let's just throw this one in. What is the supplemental guide? So she's asking about, if you don't know, I have created a Montessori guide. And what this is this is on top of you've done your Montessori training, or you have access to the Montessori albums. Because the Montessori albums, what's helpful about them is they are meticulous in the step-by-step instructions of how to teach those tried and true Montessori lessons. So if you were to buy my supplemental guide, this basically is like a daily lesson plan. And you can see videos on this as well on my channel. And what I do is I basically lay out what your day would look like from a traditional 7-hour day, from 8 to 3. So this is what you would talk about in your group meeting. These are the lessons that you would teach as your rotation in a 3-year program. This is the art you would do. This is the science you would do. If you're doing cooking that day, this is the cooking. Here's the instructions for the cooking. Here's the instructions for art. I don't give instruction for any of the Montessori lessons, but I do give instructions for any additional material that I have added in. And so it basically gives you a step-by-step guide to run your day. Because let's be honest, there are many days what did we do today? Well, if you ever have to answer that question for admin or for a parent, here's the answer. So I have done a 12-month program, which you can buy either via trade paperback or via PDF, and I walk you through step by step. Another bonus to it is that if you have a child that comes in mid-year and you want to go back to what it is that you've done, you can easily go back to the beginning and work with them from there. Or you can just stay where they're at and keep going forward knowing that you have another 2 years with them, okay? Well, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope that you are enjoying this series. Again, I'm inviting any questions that you might have, whether you are a Montessori teacher or not, that you would like to ask a Montessori teacher. Drop those questions down below. And also, please like, share, and subscribe if you're finding value in this material. Thank you for stopping by.